Okay, so now that we've made it this far, I think I would like to learn something about density. So I want to go back to the TAS summary, and I'm going to work with the developable acres now. So I think I want to just associate acres here first. There's a couple ways I could do this. One is I could just come over here and say, oh, there's acres. Take column B, copy over to here, and paste right there. The only trouble with doing it that way is that I'm not really guaranteed that this acres is matched up with this number 1. I am if I sorted it that way, but even then I'm not completely guaranteed, because what if there's missing rows in one um, uh, tab versus another. So again, I'm going to come over here to and I'm going to use the VLOOKUP like I did before. So VLOOKUP, and I'm going to say I want to look up TAS ID number 1. I'm going to come over here to 2009 where I know the acres are. I'm going to highlight these. It's acres and dev acres, and I'm actually more interested in dev acres. So I'm going to say I want column 3, and then I want false. Alright, so then I need to change this title to dev acres, and then I got like that, and I click down. And just scanning down it looks like it worked pretty well. Stopped at 310, probably because that columns there don't go any deeper than 310. They don't. So now I've got dev acres in that field. Alright, so now I want to see jobs 2040. Maybe I want to look at no, I want to look at the present. So HH, or I'm going to just call it H10 per acre. How's that? So I'm going to say equals households 10, if I can find where that went. It's clear over here, divided by the number of developable acres in the zone. And that is my housing units per acre, the gross acreage. So it's and that's some pretty low density stuff in some of those zones. But now I want to also probably take a look at my 2040 plus. So I'm going to call this H40P per acre, and I'm going to I can copy this over, but the danger there is that I just lost the calculation. I lost the acres. It's dividing by this. I can fix it by dragging it over here, or I can fix it by saying, putting a $sign in front of it, which hopefully you guys know about by now. I'm going to say $Q. That way when I move this over, the Q part stays the same, and I am now looking at HH40, but I wanted HH40 plus, so I'm going to go with that, and that gives me households per acre. I could do the same jobs per acre. Sometimes I just make fields not completely knowing whether I'm going to use them or not, but assuming that I might use them. So I've got that, and I also need to have, it's not HH, it's EMP10, and in this case it is EMP40, EMP40 plus. So then I have to double click down, and that gets me everything down like that. Okay, so that gives me my households per acre. Now let's go back to my pivot table and see if I can fix the pivot table to include acres. Okay, so if I come down here and look, it does not have it because that acres field wasn't a part of the original calculation. So what I can do is I'm going to, if I double click on one of those, it messes things up. So delete, that just shows me all of the data that made up that particular calculation. But what I really want is the options. I want to change data source. So if I do that, change data source, it brings this up, takes me back to the source of the data, but shows that I now stop at P, but I really want to stop at Q. So I'm going to just come in here, change that to Q, and say OK. Now when I come back to here, I've got a new field available here, and it's called acres. I'm going to put that down there, sum dev acres, and that is now available in that one. I'm going to do the same with this pivot table. I'm going to go to options, change data source. I want my acres to be a part of the calculation, so Q, and okay, so it's available but not in the table yet, and I need to put it in the table, and there we go. So count of dev acres. Oh, that says count. I'm not interested in count, I'm interested in the sum. It's 310 just means that it counted up 310 records that had dev acres in it. So I need to go down here, change to field settings, and say sum, and I got to do the same over here, count, change field settings, and sum. Okay, and that's acres. Now my paste values field is a little bit fouled up too, so I'm going to insert a row there, or a column, and this was a calculated field, if you remember, not part of the paste values. So I'm going to Control X and move it over, Control V. That gives me a place to put my paste values for dev acres, and I'm going to now paste values, and there's my dev acres there. And it turns out that dev acres is exactly the same, so I need to just Control X, V, and I'm going to take dev acres from here, shortcut a little bit, and put that in like that. Alright, so now I'm interested in the average housing density and the average employment density. So I'm going to copy these names right here down to right here. And I'm going to say, well, no, I'll put one more space between them for titles. And then I'm going to say the density in 2010 is the total households in 2010 divided by the total acres in 2010. Well, total acres in any year, it doesn't matter, 2010, whatever. And so then drag that down, and this gives me the average dwelling units per acre in the district. So yeah, alright, very good. And I also want to do this for several places, but always divide by column G. So I'm going to put the $sign there, click that to the bottom, and then go over like that. So now this gives me H10 per acre, I'm going to call it acre, and copy this is H40 per acre and H40 plus per acre. Okay, and now I want the same thing for employment. So I think I will start out by saying copy this to the same position under the table as over there. Then I should have ended up with the same calculation. I do, except that I'm dividing by a different dev acres. It's fine because it's the same value, but for consistency I'm going to change the G to P and copy that down, copy that across, and I'm probably now correct. So the only difference now is that I need to change H into E. Oh, it's still set up that way. So replace all and close. Now I'm going to move this over here next to the other one just for convenience. Now I have the total housing units and employment per acre, a density measure. And let's just see how that, what's interesting about this. So we see that the central core is not the highest housing density location. The eastern Logan, the most stable part of Logan, the most developed, is, and it's 3 dwelling units per acre. So a third of an acre average lot size. Or is it average lot size? I want you to think about that for a minute. And then this is 42 jobs per acre in that. Okay, I'm going to highlight those values as interesting to me, and then okay, so the next thing I've decided that I'm curious about is how this looks in Google Earth and how this looks in GIS, because I want to see what 41 and employees per acre looks like in some of these places, and in the 3.07 number. So what I need to do in order to do that is I need to write out the data from ArcGIS to Google Earth. And you won't do that for this exercise, but I'll show you the results anyway, and you'll have the files available. So what I need to do, or you can get it ready to export, I guess. So we're going to create a new tab field there. I'm just going to say it's equal to the TAS ID. Oh, I can't really double click that down because there's nothing to double click down against. So I have to copy the whole field this time, and then what I'm going to do, go away little thing, then I'm going to say equals my 2010 density per acre, and I think I'll just get all of my densities per acre there and copy them down. So now I have the density of each zone identified, and in order to make this a little bit nicer for labeling in GIS, I'm going to shift end, and oh, it doesn't work. I have to, apparently I have to only try to reduce the data that I have for, and okay, so now just 1/100ths is pretty good. And I'm going to also eliminate all of these rows that are not really real TAZs. It'll make it easier for joining the data. So delete, and like that. So push the little page break or the freeze panes button, convenient, and hit save. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is write this out, or we're going to call this export 1, because that's where we're sending it to. File, save as, and I'm going to save this as a CSV file, comma separated values, which is an easy one for ArcGIS to join to the polygon shapes of the TAZs, and then we can color by density and such like that. So I'm going to go ahead and save it under my output directory as TAZ analysis.cav, and that's it. So